beautiful time in this new month of April. I'm excited because spring is upon us. Things are shifting and they're changing.
Absolutely. It's time to embrace this shift. And you know what? I'm so excited about our guest tonight, Dr. J. Her name is Teresa LaRue. She's a professional keynote speaker, certified professional trainer, an empowerment life coach. She's an entrepreneur and a domestic
Yes,
violence survivor. Now, you know, I'm excited about what she has to say because, you
absolutely.
know, we're both advocates for domestic violence. And, you know, she has an extraordinary testimony. She is an author of a book called My Rock, My Hard Place. We're going to bring to the stage Teresa LaRue.
Hey, welcome.
I can't hear you, Teresa. You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Dr.
Hey,
Valerie.
I hear you now.
Hi, Dr. JR. It's Teresa here on this end from Sacramento, California, and I'm sending
Yeah.
good wishes out to you and your whole community. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow,
Oh,
you're from
I'm excited.
Sacramento. Yes. I
And
love
and
that part
and
of
she's
the
beautiful, isn't she?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just a
I'm so
mirror image
glad.
of those around me.
Yeah, we
Wow.
don't look like what we've been through.
No, we don't. All those scars are on the inside.
Wow.
Absolutely. Now,
Yes.
I said you're a professional keynote speaker. I had a chance to meet you this past weekend. You were
Yes,
at the training that Les Brown hosted, and
yes.
he introduced us.
He absolutely did. And what a weekend it was. And one of the highlights was definitely sitting and talking with you. We were surrounded by so many like-minded people. And of course, Les, as we said earlier, so generous with his time and himself. And it was a great weekend, but I loved meeting you. And again, thank you so much for having me here today.
Absolutely. Now, you have a book you just released called My Rock, My Hard Place.
Wow.
I do. It's my true story of my journey through domestic violence. But it's not all about the violence. You know, domestic violence is ugly, it's not pretty. But this is about how I rose from that, how I came from that, and
I love
now
it.
why I'm using my voice and how I'm using my voice to help others that can't.
I hear your title, My Rock, My Hard Place. Anytime we hear the word my, that's an ownership. And so I'm just automatically delighted because when a person owns whatever they're in, whatever season they're in, whatever they experience, it generally states the fact that person have drawn lessons from what they've gone through. And so I'm excited about it because just the title, My Rock and My Hard Place, those two together just sound powerful. And I'm quite sure it speaks to those of us because we all have rocks. We all have hard places, but everybody don't embrace them or everyone doesn't always derive the lesson from that. So I'm anxious to hear a little bit of highlights about your book and hopefully, we will put it up there that we all can be able to purchase your book.
I called it that, My Rock, My Hard Place, because I put myself there. I allowed that to happen to me. I enabled someone else to take my power, diminish my worth. And I basically ended up on the clearance rack at the Dollar Tree.
Hmm.
My worth my value had diminished so horribly. And it was my rock to bear. It was my hard place to get out of. And I've had a few people and they said, well, that's a dumb title. But then I have to explain it to them. And then they say, oh, okay, I get it. I said, I owned it. You're right. You're right, Dr. J. I owned it.
That's so powerful because so many people, when they're in their heart place, when they're in that place there, many people will find themselves becoming bitter. They become angry. Sometimes they're in denial. They are in avoidance. But what would you say the lessons you learned by taking ownership of it? Because I think taking ownership allows you to be free, allows you to start that journey to healing again. And I'm definitely looking forward to it because there are people that are stuck. They've
Yes.
been stuck in their heart place. They've been stuck and they're there and they keep falling back to that place and they keep reminding and rehearsing that heart place. But how do you spring forward? How did you spring forward?
Well, I think a lot of domestic violence victims or anybody that's been through any kind of trauma or abuse we are so quick to be ashamed and embarrassed and humiliated. I didn't do anything to precipitate any of those feelings. It wasn't my fault. The only thing I did was give my heart to the wrong person. That was all I did. I didn't do anything wrong. So if anyone needs to be feeling those things, those emotions, is the abuser. He should be embarrassed for acting like that. He should be ashamed for treating someone else like that. And, you know, it's interesting. One of my favorite women of all time is Maya Angelou. And I read a quote by her, and it was a catalyst that made me realize I did not belong where I was. I can be changed by what happened to me. I can be changed by what happened to me. I refuse to be reduced by it. Wow. And I saw that in the middle of all the turmoil. And I said, you know what? You're right. I was changed. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, was I changed? I became empowered and transformational. And that quote, it's hanging on my office wall right here. Actually, I see it every single day, and it's in my book. And it was so powerful to me. And I think everybody has to have one of those aha moments where you're just done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, that's why, you know, embracing this shift, you know, when I was going through my domestic violence situation, my shift happened when my children stepped before me to protect me from my husband. They were like, it's 8, 9, 10, and 12, 13 years old. And they formed a hedge before me and told my ex that he wasn't going to hit me anymore. Now, that caused the shift for me. And I decided at that moment that I wanted greater for myself and for my children, because it's also against God's law for children to raise up against their parents. And at that moment, that opened my eyes to a larger vision of myself, where I knew that they and I deserve more. So what happened with you that caused that shift to occur in your life?
There were a few things. The quote was one. The second one was my abuser was not only bipolar, he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. So you put that in a big bowl, and it's just toxic. It's explosive. And I did everything I could. I pulled in favors. You know how you do that, and you call somebody and you say, hey, help me out, help me out. And I got him into a halfway house, and I was supposed to take him the next morning. And we agreed where I would pick him up and I would take him. And I sat there and I sat there and I waited and I waited. And 45 minutes into the hour of me waiting, he called me, and he was high and drunk and just screaming at me, yelling at me. And something inside me just shifted. As you say, it was a shift. Something inside me shifted after about the 8th hang up. Wow. And I changed my call. I changed my number at that moment. I didn't return any calls from my friends when they started to say, well, I don't care. I don't care what you saw. I don't care who you saw. I'm moving on. So,
you know, it's called enlightenment. You know, some people call it, they have an epiphany, you know, an epiphany, and all of a sudden they wake up. But even with an epiphany, you begin to see things from a different perspective, and there's something liberating about it. And yet and still, though the light comes on, it's still up to you to make that shift, to be able to change, to make up in your mind, and to do what you need to do to liberate yourself. You said something earlier that I thought was so important that people need to understand, especially when it comes to victims of domestic violence. Often society will double down on the victim as if the victim did something wrong. No, the victim is not the one doing something wrong. It's not against the law to just be a person. It's against the law to do what that person is doing. And so when the accountability part is really should be held to the perpetrator. And yet it's still that so many victims have been beaten down so emotionally, not only from their perpetrator, but oftentimes even from people that are well-meaning.
Society.
They end up carrying the guilt as if they have the burden of proof of, or they're the ones that have to try to defend themselves. And the system is backwards. But I love what happened with you, because after you did what many do, you tried to help, you tried to be there, but something happened in that epiphany moment, and you recognize, hold up, no, no, this is it. Yeah, time out, right? Okay, let's go another way. And
Right.
there's a shift that happened inside of you.
Yep.
The question I have for you is, how did you maintain that shift? Because sometimes memories will call us back to what we were saying.
Mhm.
We start remembering the highlight moments, no matter how few they might have been. And those things will call us back to that situation. How were you able to maintain that mindset of the shift? Because I do believe shift is an action, but shifting is a continual thing that's
It
happening.
was a continuum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so correct on that. It was one of those things where I truly took one day at a time.
Yeah.
He actually ended up making his way to that halfway house. I don't know how he did it. And 2 weeks later, I received a letter, and it was an invitation to go to a family event at the halfway house on a Sunday. And I called on a Friday just to find out what it was all about. And they said, oh, he got kicked out. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm truly done, even more so. And those 2 weeks were so, and I can't even think of a word better than enlightening to me. I was able to, my home was calm. My demeanor became calm again. I wasn't fight or flight or fawn or freeze or what am I getting ready to do right now? It was calm, and I actually was sleeping. And I would have people, as I told you, call me and say, well, I don't care. If we're not talking about him, if you want to say hi or whatever, that's great. But I think, Dr. Valerie, you said something earlier about society and how they are part of the problem so often. I remember so many times, friends and family meaning well, saying, well, why don't you leave? Why didn't you leave sooner? Why are you letting him treat you like that? No, those are the worst things you can say to a victim or a survivor. The worst. You're just adding fuel to the fire. The best thing you can say is, I am so proud of you. Good job. You can do this. I believe in you. Or just basic, how can I help?
But so many times people are on the outside looking in,
Yes.
and you can't see the picture when you're actually inside of that frame. So when you're living it, everything is so different. And, my first book, From the Soul of a Woman, Love Shouldn't Hurt, which is my website, and I built a whole empire around that. And I said, love shouldn't hurt, but the perpetrator hurts you, and then your family and friends hurt you. My second book, Unveiling Secrets from the Heart, Forgiving Your Past to Free Your Future. I wrote that book because I was out on the circuit speaking, and I was selling my books. And the thing everyone kept saying is, I wouldn't have taken that. How could you stay in a marriage 19 years? How could you put your children through that? How could you those 19 years to me was almost like a couple of years, because every day was a day of survival. I never knew what to expect every single day, all through the day. I was constantly in survival mode 17 years out of the 19, because we separated after 17 years of marriage. And it was hard. It was rough. And I was here isolated from my family. And I didn't tell anybody what was going on because of the embarrassment of the situation, and he was a pastor. Who are you going to tell that the pastor is beating you?
Yes.
Who are you going to tell that, yeah, this person, this man of God that you love is abusing you?
Yes.
So I was in isolation. So people often say, it couldn't have been me. I would have knocked him upside his head. I would have did this. I would have did that. Until you're in that situation.
Yes.
People always tell you how you should raise your children. And then when they have children, their children are a hot mess.
Well, they're armchair quarterbacks.
Exactly.
That's basically what they are. They don't realize. And I was physically very strong. I was a competitive power lifter. And then at that time, I was a competitive bodybuilder. So I was extremely strong. And people look at some of the pictures in my book and they say, this is the person that he beat? This is who he abused so horribly? Yes. Yes. And you know who else is to blame also? Law enforcement and the medical profession. I remember going to the emergency room with bumps and bruises, and I actually was thrown into a wall, and I miscarried my child. And so the medical profession, they don't look at you, they won't make eye contact with you. They're feeling that embarrassment and being ashamed for you. So that just makes it even worse.
One of the things that happened, you hit it right head on because of the fact, 36% of most all ER visits, believe it or not, is domestic violence related. And so we know that happens. On the other end, when we start looking at society, it's the shame factor that we have to minimize. Because think about it, even inside of the justice system, most of the time, who's forced to leave the home? Yep. The woman and the children. Yeah. Why would they be forced to leave the home? Because they're being abused. They did nothing wrong. So societal thinking about this is really warped. And that's why they make statements like, well, how can you been abused? Look how strong you look. And they don't understand that domestic violence has nothing necessarily to do with your physical strength as much as it has to do with the emotional and the mental beat down. Because we like to say long before the individual was ever beat up, they was beaten down mentally and verbally and those type of assaults. And I don't care who you are. Listen, you have a soul and words are crushing and being mistreated is crushing. And it takes us out of our healthy state of mind. Yes. And so when we look to help people, we have to be able to help people from a place that is not so much from intellect as much as it is from compassion.
Yes.
And recognizing that, because, a person being a victim, it's not a sign of weakness, not at all. A person being a victim is a result of someone who is exercising power and control. And we have to be there as a society. How do we stand with those individuals? How do we stand beside them? How do we not make them feel as if they are the lowest thing on the earth? Because at the end of the day, they're human beings, they're individuals, they're having an experience, but that experience doesn't have to be permanent. And that's where everyone else comes in to be able to come to that side.
One of the things that I get approached with almost daily is, well, I'm afraid, I don't know who I can talk to. And I keep telling everyone, asking for help does not mean you're weak. On the contrary, it means you want to be strong. And if you ask for help, especially me, I will find it for you. I don't care where you're located in the world. Survive, Rise to Thrive. We have helped people all over the world. We've helped Mexico, the Philippines, the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is where I'm from. We have helped a lot of people. And you just asking, don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed. It means you want to get out of that situation and you want to get past that pain.
And also asking for help, it is a hand up, not a hand out.
Yep.
If you can, everyone is one person away from a breakthrough. Yes. And if you can just get that hand up so you can see clearly, because when the world seems like it's against you and you can't even see through the shades of a window, it is overwhelming. And as Dr. J says, you're beat down from within. So, I used to fight all the time in school. Yeah. My sisters and brothers, somebody bothered them, they'd come. I was the smallest one, but they come get me because they knew I would fight.
I see that in you.
Going to my family and saying, this is happening to me, it was embarrassing. So I couldn't say anything because that's not what they would have expected from me. But I was beat down by the word of God. It said, wives, submit to your husbands, do this, do that, as according to the word of God. So I was in a chokehold. Yeah. I didn't know what to do. So there's a lot of times that people go through situations and they don't know how to get out. They don't even know how to ask for help. So with this book, you have My Rock, My Hard Place. Tell me, or can you share with our audience how to embrace the shift, some steps to shifting out of that hard place?
Well, the first thing you have to do is remember that you come first. Your self-love and self-care is first. We are so busy during that situation putting someone else first all the time. We forget ourselves. And, you know, I was lucky. I was a certified personal trainer then, and I am now. And I had to go out and motivate people and say, oh my gosh, you're great, you're great. And then I would come home to that abuse, to that domestic violence situation. And I equate it to having a mask by the door. When I would go out in public, I would put a mask on and I'd be all happy and friendly and, you know, oh my gosh, you can do it. I believe in you. You're amazing. And then I would come home and take the mask off, and then the heartache would start, and the just devastation would be there. And so I tell people, look into yourself first. Do one thing for yourself every single day that is good for you. You know, if you start meditating, if you start with mindfulness, just be centered and grounded in your moment right now, whether you're drinking a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or you're just taking the dog for a walk, ground yourself. And also affirmations. You know, I am it's so strong. It's so powerful, because anything that comes after I am can and will happen. If you believe, it will. I am going to get out of this. I am going to create a life that I love. I am going to be that beautiful, wonderful, amazing person that I was before, because she's still in there. I believe she's still in there. I know she is. So those are
powerful.
Those things are so important, because I did those things. I took a dry erase marker and wrote on my bathroom window mirror. So when I was brushing my teeth, you know, I would say my affirmations. I am. And you have to believe them from your soul. They're not just words. You have to truly believe that. You have to truly believe that you are worth it and you are more than enough. Unfortunately, a lot of people in domestic violence situations think that they deserve what they're getting. You know, I didn't cook enough. I didn't clean the house enough. I didn't buy him or her enough clothes or whatever. I need to get another car. Oh my gosh, I didn't put gas in the car. I deserve to be beaten. You know, and we've got to get away from that. So changing our mindset, you have to master your mind. Our mind is so powerful, but it can also be used against us as well.
And that's where manipulation, and that's one reason why manipulation has such a powerful grip on people, because understand what we think, you know, so a man or woman thinketh, so is he. And the thing about it, when it goes back to the words and affirmation, it is so important, because our mouths is as a pen of a ready writer. What comes out of our mouth, we begin to rehearse. And whatever we nurture, whatever we rehearse, that's what grows. Yeah. We can perfect failure because of what comes out of our mouth. Yeah. And so the right language and being able to speak in that mindfulness that you spoke of is so very important. And it brings you back to something that you said, Dr. Val. That is the reason why when people, institutions are in positions to help, they need to be equipped to help. Because in your case, Dr. Val, here was a person who held position, title, and basically it is what we call a scriptural abuser. Right. Taking the scripture, which informs your belief system, and using it to their benefit. In other words, they weaponize the scripture to make it feel as if somehow or another you were supposed to succumb to this, you were supposed to do so, you're supposed to adhere to it. And we see that happen all the time. People are trapped inside of it, because even well-intentioned leaders will say things like, well, you know, hey, you're supposed to do this. And no, not at all. Because anything that destroys your sense of self-worth, anything that destroys your sense of self-worth, in other words, that destroys the way that you see yourself. And if you are diminishing and taking from me, and I no longer see myself as a gift from God and no longer see myself as worthy, then guess what? You are a detriment to me. You're not in my corner. And therefore, guess what? I need to shift. I need to shift from you. I need to shift from your presence. And that's why it's so important inside of what we do and what we say. And that's why your story is so important. My rock.
My heart.
Yes.
I mean, I just love it, because every time I say it, I feel power behind it.
Yeah.
So you have to. Right? My heart place. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting you said that about, you know, negative people in your life and shifting away from them. Relationships matter. And Les Brown speaks of it all the time. If you're around 5 broke people and you're the 6th one, you're going to be broke.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yes.
you know, if you're around people that are playing into that abuse, because a lot of family and friends will do that. Oh, he's such a good person. It's not that bad. You're all right. It's just a black eye. You probably fell. You're all right.
Yeah, you'll be all right. It's okay.
Yes.
But a
And,
lot
you
of
know,
times we make excuses because we love, and we
yes.
love hard. And
Yes.
you know, the embarrassment is one thing, but let's not forget the fact that we love these individuals. We love who we thought that they were going to be and who they were going to be to us. And there were good times, and you keep hoping that no matter what is going on right then, that if you just work a little harder, if you just do this, if you just do
If I
that,
just
it'll
wear that
get
shirt
back.
that he likes,
It just
yes.
get back to that place. But it's
Yeah.
not always the case. And you know, I often would say, why am I going through this? And, you know, now that I've come through and my children are raised and they're raising their children, I
Awesome.
see why. It's like, okay, why not you? You, you know, the word says he won't put no more on you than you can bear. But at the time when you're going through it, you like put it on somebody else.
Right.
I don't
Well,
want to deal with this. But a lot of times it crushes us into purpose.
yes, absolutely. And you know, it's interesting, Dr. J, you said something about, you know, the words and how important words are. This book started out because the district attorney court ordered me to go to a therapist.
Mm.
And I went to the therapist, and within 5 minutes, he said, we're going to put you on medication because I know you have PTSD. I'm a competitive athlete. I don't want medication. So I went back to the district attorney. He says, I tell you what, you keep a journal. And that became this.
Wow.
You
And
know,
I
that's the
started
first thing.
journaling. That's how I wrote my
Yes.
first book. I didn't know it was journaling,
You
but
know,
I just
definitely.
started writing my emotions and things that I felt because it was things I didn't understand. And I kept asking God, you know, okay, when are you going to deliver me? And, you know, I know you love me. And I'm not deserving of this because of what your word says. So I started writing out my feelings and my emotions, and that's where I came from, the soul of a woman, from the inside out.
Yep.
Love
And
shouldn't
that's
hurt.
how you heal. You're so right. You know, we have to work on mind, body, and spirit, but that spirit has to get strong to get everything else in alignment. It has to. And you know, it's interesting. As soon as you were talking about journaling, I had a vision of, you remember those little diaries with the key
Oh,
that
yeah.
we used to have? Yeah. And I tell people, write down everything, because when you write something down, your words have importance. They have worth. When
Yes.
you do that, it's kind of like, you know, the teacher will say, okay, Billy, write 100 times on the board, I will not hit Sally. You know, and it has importance. It has worth. You know, he's not going to touch Sally again after those 100 things. But also, if you write down, I am beautiful, I am amazing, I deserve more, I am deserving of the life that I want to create, you got it. It'll happen.
You know, it's so important. And that's the thing about it. Also, inside of journaling, it is also a record. It gives you it allows you to see movement, where I was, what was my mindset, what am I learning? You know, and I'm watching one of our viewers that's on now. Her whole book too was because of the fact, the whole part about journaling, and because journaling has a way of speaking to you. It has a way. Your words are safe with you. Your words are safe with you when you put them out there. Words have life. You know, the words I speak into you, they're spirit and they are life. What do I speak? I'm speaking life. And I can speak life through my journaling that I may not always be able to openly speak in the, if you would, in the open space with people. But we find strength in our words. We go back and find encouragement through our word. And oftentimes we go back and realize that we're stronger than we thought we were when we reflect back on where we've been, because we all live life forward, but we learn life backwards. When I look back and realize the fact of where I come from, and that's why I'm so supportive of people who say, I'm not going to stay where I am. I'm not going to allow someone to encase me in my yesterday. And that's why we have to be able to speak boldly, because there are people who will lock you in your last year situation, what you were. But when you begin to speak life, and as you say, when you shift, I love the part you say, look here, nope. Don't want to hear it. Don't care where you went. I don't want to have anything. Sometimes you have to be that bold and just declare, no, I'm done with that. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Tell that to somebody who care. You got the wrong address, right?
Well, and it's all about setting your boundaries. And when people set boundaries, they don't realize you have to be the first person in line to respect those boundaries. Absolutely. A lot of people don't do that. They just say, okay, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And the next thing you know, they're taking a text message or a phone call from their abuser. But you just told your whole family and friends to stay away from him. No, you have to be first. You have to set your boundaries. You have to respect them. And you have to make sure that everybody else understands them and adheres to them. Very simple. And they have to be in concrete, not a line in the sand that can be moved. Concrete.
Yeah. Right. One of our viewers that is watching said many women are scared to be alone also.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's true. In my case, I had 4 children, and I was like, what in the world are you going to do with 4 children? And, you know, you're by yourself. And my oldest daughter said to me, she was like, well, Mom, you already been doing it. You've been working, you've been cleaning, we've been dropping off to school. So what's different? Yeah. And I mean, I didn't even know what I was doing because I was like a robot every day. Mm-hmm. I did what I had to do. But like I said, you know, life is a process, and a lot of times it crushes us into our purpose. And I didn't realize at the time all of the things that I had gone through that time helped birth out where I needed to be so that I can speak to the masses. I never thought about writing a book. One book, I wrote 4 books. I never thought about having this type platform. I started out with a blog about 15 years ago, and I mean, 168,000 shows people have played. 168,000. That's a lot of shows people have replayed. So that means that the information is out there for people to be empowered and inspired. And I'm so glad, Teresa LaRue, that I met you so that you can also be a voice to help transition individuals into their greatness by embracing the shift, whatever that shift may be, because sometimes, okay, it's not domestic violence, but there's some people are locked in of their own selves where they don't know where their purpose is. They're in a car with the engine running, stopped at the red light, not going anywhere because they don't know where they're going. Mm-hmm. But it's time to embrace a shift. It has to begin in your mind. Your mind, you have to want more in order to be more and do more. At that moment when I had to make a decision to do something, I had to rely on me. We're always our greatest resource.
Yes.
We are always our greatest resource, no matter what's going on. We have, you said, if it's going to be, it's up to me. So that means we can't be sitting down doing nothing. We have to be mobile. We have to keep it moving, because guess what? Depression will set in. Mm-hmm. The woe is me will set in. And the fear will definitely overtake you. Mm-hmm. But you have to own your space of where you are and where you've been. As I said, I had to forgive my past. I don't care about what I went through. All I need to know is where I'm going, because It's just not about me. It's about what has to be done through me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I completely agree. You know, I thought I was just going to have my book and that was great. And I was going to go around and speak about my book and domestic violence. And I wanted to put some statistics in here. And I think I shared this with you on Saturday when we met. And the more I read about how prevalent, how accepted domestic violence is, not only in the US, but globally, I got so angry. And here in Sacramento, it's generational. In a lot of the cultures, it's accepted. You know, the grandfather did it, the father did it, the son's watching the father beat the mom, and then it's going to be accepted. And the females are seeing the males, or vice versa. It happens both ways. But we have a huge Asian population, Indian population, and Pacific Islander out here. And in those cultures, it's accepted. And I'm just appalled. I cannot believe it. So one of the things I'm doing also is getting into those communities and letting people know I'm here. Let's stop it. And I think also if we get to the root of the problem, the males who are seeing this behavior and make them understand and want to change and want to break that cycle, I think that's a good direction as well.
And I agree with you. And I think we have to put a lot more emphasis and a lot more, if you would, we have to expect more of our males. We
Yes.
have to. It is so interesting. Our society oftentimes wants to come to the women to fix a problem that males are mostly at the helm of. And so until we can shift that to understand as a man, what does it mean to me? What do I gain out of, if you would, dethroning a woman, minimizing her, put her down? And God forbid, if you have a daughter, what message am I sending to her inside of that? And then, because domestic violence is basically a learned behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. Kids graduate from parent university, unfortunately.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Magna cum laude, right? So we have to change that narrative because children live what they learn and they learn what they live. And so we have to take a personal responsibility. And I like to say this. We can shift it, even as males, we can change it. We can become exactly what we did not see because of the fact we must have a desire. It was actually when we look back on Winston Churchill, he said, we teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are. And we have to determine what we're going to be inside of that. I can shift and change things. I don't have to be sentenced to what I saw growing up. I can make up my mind that I suffered behind it. I did not like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like the fear that I saw my mom in, what I saw my sisters in, and how do I shift it? Once again, if it's going to be, it's up to me. How do I stop this generational onslaught of this abuse, this violence, this type of behavior? Because somewhere along the line, we need to declare this is not masculine. This is not love. This is no way. This is not the measure of a man. It's a measure of a mouse. And we have to shift that thinking. And so we have to direct a lot of our attention toward males, engaging men and boys. What is a proper thing? Cultural norms that is acceptable in our society. And one of the major ones is that we have to start even from little boys. Stop raising them and normalizing this fact that boys don't cry. Boys don't show emotion. No. They ought to show emotion. They ought to be given permission to say, I'm hurting. I'm sad. That hurt my feelings. And not bottle it in. And it only comes out through our anger. And so we have a lot of work to do. And that work has to be done. We've got to be ready to what? Shift cultural norms.
Yep.
Shift cultural acceptance of things. Shift it. In other words, it's no longer acceptable here. And if we hold fast to that, we'll see communities change one at a time.
Well, I agree. And also going back to that famous word shift, I mean, you have to shift your respect inside of yourself, and it has to be an up level. It has to be. That's where it starts. And then you have to respect the person that you're in a relationship with. And if you don't have that, if a person doesn't have basic respect, we have issues. We certainly do have issues. And, the one thing I did learn in my relationship is, it's funny. A lot of people say, oh, love, no matter what, I will love you. Love has to have boundaries. It has to have, stipulations. I will love you until you disrespect me. I will love you until. And if that happens, you've lost my love. My love is a privilege. And we need to remember that we have such high worth. And when we allow someone else to diminish that worth, that's when the disrespect starts.
Exactly.
Absolutely. How can people connect with you, Teresa?
Well, you can go to my website, which is Survive, Rise to Thrive, and you can connect with me there. You can also find me on TikTok, Instagram, as Survive, Rise to Thrive. We have a private Facebook group, and I would love to invite anybody in your community that is a domestic violence victim, survivor, or knows someone and would just like good information and events. It's Survive, Rise to Thrive, and I'll gladly get you in that group, or just my name, Teresa LaRue, on Facebook. I can be reached anywhere at any time pretty much. And I get back within 24 hours.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Awesome. My rock, my heart place. Yeah. And I embrace that rock. I embrace that heart place because there's no change without growth.
Yep. There's no change without courage.
Right.
And
Exactly.
one of the things I really want to tell everybody, please find your courage, harness it, and then just unleash it. That's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to get past that pain. We never get over it. We never do. You know, Dr. Valerie, we don't get over it. It's packed. Mine is packed in a box in the closet. It's how you pack it and how you have to respect those feelings, what you went through. Just leave them right there. But
Absolutely.
you got to find that courage.
So once again, we grow through what we go through, right? We grow through what we go through. And if we're not afraid to make that shift, in other words, be willing to say goodbye to yesterday. Be willing to say goodbye to what was once acceptable. Be willing to do so. Growth is all about that. Growth is about realization. It's about knowing my sense of self-worth. And that's what respect is valuing one's sense of self-worth. And that means that I'm not waiting on you to do it. It starts with me first.
Yes, it has to start with you. Yeah, you're absolutely
right. My
sense
of self-worth. In other words, the reason I carry myself the way I do has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the way I feel about me. So because I value my sense of self-worth, I make those boundaries. I set those boundaries, and you're not going to trample upon them. You're not going to violate them. Why? Because I value me too much. And because I value me, I will leave you in the dark. I will shift, right? I embrace my shift. There's another gear I have here, and I'm going to shift. Absolutely.
Well, you know, females, when we start to gain that confidence, and we're in a domestic violence situation, and we start to gain that confidence and gain that self-worth back, we're called selfish. We're called arrogant. I'm just being confident and doing me.
Absolutely.
And that's what's important. And that's when that courage comes out. I mean, it's hard. Being in a domestic violence situation is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Absolutely.
But getting out of it was harder.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm very, very happy. I'm very proud of myself where I've come. I'm proud of this book. And I'm very proud that I'm able to use my voice when others can't.
Absolutely. One of the things I like that you did, Dr. J, was you just described love. L.
Yeah, exactly.
Love yourself. O. Yeah. Take ownership of where you are. Mm-hmm. V. Value yourself. You're worth it. Don't let anybody tell you you're not worth it. You are worth it. Value who you are. And then embrace the journey ahead.
Yeah.
Embrace it. There's a shift that's going to take place. And yes, it is always scary. We always fear the unknown. But guess what? Like I did and like Teresa did, you fear your present more than you fear your future. So there's no looking back. You only got forward to go. Just keep looking forward, regardless of what it looks like, what it feels like. You just keep moving forward because guess what? When purpose is there, the doors will open. When purpose is there, breakthrough happens. Chains begin to break. And then that's when you know you're on the right course.
Well, what is fear except face everything and rise? That's what it is. You know,
yes, you have to. Yep. You have to. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Yep. So we got to keep it moving, keep embracing, keep empowering, keep strengthening individuals, and you go and do surviverisetothrive.com.
Yes. Exactly. I would absolutely love to connect with some of your people. Wanda's has commented a few times. I see Selma as well, and Janice I see up there. I would love to connect with any of you. Please find me on any of the social media platforms and let's have a conversation. Let's increase the tribe, because if my tribe is overlapping with Dr. Valerie's and Dr. J's and everyone that's here, it just works. It works. That's how we get stronger. That's how we make that shift.
Absolutely.
Creating
And I
that
want to
community
invite
of peace. Creating a
I want to
community of
invite
peace.
everyone to tune in and subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. And we thank Dr. Teresa LaRue. She is going to be a doctor of domestic violence, breaking chains, and subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. And tune in next week. Good night.
Hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah, hot topics.